Have you ever opened up to someone you thought you were close to about something that was kind of painful, kind of deep, and they just looked at you
Oh my
like,
God, bro.
Oh, hell no, man. What the?
why the hell is she sharing that? Don't I know the feeling? I like to consider myself a very introspective kind of person, an investigative kind of gal. And I'm really interested in uncovering some of the reasons why I found myself in particularly weird and uncomfy situations, especially with people that I deeply cared for. And I think I just really enjoy getting to the root of what be going on inside people's minds. Like, what be going on up there? And in my personal life, I've noticed most of the issues that I've had with human beings tend to have kind of a pattern. There is a clear gap or disconnect between the kind of empathy that I'm working with and the kind of empathy that the other person's working with. So what in the hoot and hollering is that all about? People talk so much about how they would love to have deep connections and friendships and relationships with other people. But at the end of the day, this all boils down to the fact that one can only meet others as deeply as they've met themselves. And when you're an empathetic person and you genuinely enjoy connecting with people beyond a surface level, people like us might assume that other people share that sentiment or that other people can be on the same wavelength as us. We may not even see ourselves as necessarily deep or sensitive because that's just our natural baseline, but not so fast, sweetie pie. The mismatch becomes clear when we get into relationships with people and we end up super hurt. We're like, how did I even let it get this far with this weirdo? And this is because we're not always able to quickly spot or discern what kinds of people won't be able to meet us emotionally, that the things that we care about are going to be the same things that they care about. So many times in my life, I have struggled with discerning what kinds of people really have a hard time with empathy. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about some of the signs to look for so you can be more mindful of who you're building relationships with in the long run. All right, so lack of empathy. I'm going to type that into Google. According to google.com, okay, a lack of empathy is the inability to understand and share the feelings of others. And this can manifest as behaviors such as being critical, self-centered, and indifferent to suffering. You need to leave! Now, from that description, okay, it seems like something like this would be relatively easy to spot. But think about this though, think about this. When you're first meeting a person, they may be sweet and funny and such a joy to be around, right? But at this stage, emotional involvement is quite low. So you never really start to notice the real stuff until the relationship actually gets to the real stuff. But if you're intentional and know what to look for, you could possibly spot it much sooner than later. There are so many reasons why someone would struggle with empathy. And there are a whole heap of situations and signs that could lead you to conclude that a person struggles with empathy. But I'm going to talk about some of the main signs and some of the main ways that I've seen in my life that this was apparent. So in the comments, after you've thought about it for a minute, let me know of a time where you've noticed this in your life. Sign number one, when you are vulnerable and it's met with indifference, criticism, dismissal, debate, or mockery. I can remember opening up to someone that I used to date about something difficult that happened to me in my childhood. And I distinctly remember his reaction being like so odd. He was just awkwardly like smiling at me like,
You stupid.
and he didn't really have anything valuable to say. He was just looking. No follow-up, no comforting or anything like that. And I was like, wow, this is super weird because this is literally my boyfriend. Someone who tells me that they love me every single day, but they don't have a reaction or respond when I open up to them about harm I've experienced.
What?
This is very crazy. And in normal relationships, you would expect your partner to in some way have a personal connection to the pain that you feel. They want to defend your honor. They want to protect you. They want to comfort you, okay? And Don't get me wrong, I get it. Some people do tend to freeze up when you talk about certain harmful things that have happened to you. Some people don't know what to say, okay? And I could have given him grace for that, but at the end of the day, this was only just a tiny puzzle piece in the bigger picture of his emotional avoidance. And the small amount of data that I got from that interaction with him quite literally foreshadowed how the rest of the relationship went. But even with something less intense, okay, say you open up to a friend about a personal difficulty that you have, and they make a weird joke about it instead of leaning in and being curious and understanding. That's data that they don't know how to handle what you're sharing with them. People who don't have certain emotional skills don't know how to respond to vulnerability appropriately. Sign number 2, lack of emotional regulation. See, having empathy is directly related to having emotional bandwidth. And people who don't have the emotional bandwidth to regulate their own emotions are not going to have empathy for your emotions. Anyone that constantly complains about human beings expressing feelings likely don't know how to emotionally regulate themselves, and that's why they get so overwhelmed. If you express hurt, confusion, or sadness, or anything of the like, they may shut it down or get irritated, etc., because they take other people's feelings as a threat. These are also the same kinds of people who tend to project. If you have any feelings or perspectives that bother them, they will try to control you or make you responsible for the difficult feelings that they have. They will make you responsible for their discomfort instead of examining why you feel the way you feel or just opting to self-soothe. You also may feel like you're kind of walking on eggshells with them because they may be extremely reactive when discussions about feelings come into play. You are constantly scanning for clues that it's safe to express yourself. And that's exhausting as hell. Sign number 3, self-centered AF. Healthy levels of empathy allow you to notice another person's emotional state, accept their emotional state, and adjust your behavior to honor what it is that they feel. People who are self-centered are going to notice how you feel, okay? They're gonna notice. But they're not gonna establish any relation to that feeling or care enough to do anything to adjust their behavior because all they can focus on is their emotional world. Kind of like if you have emotionally unavailable parents, all right, and you're telling them something like, oh, I'm going through XYZ right now. I'm having such a hard time, right? And they're like, well, I had it worse in my day. This is the current day, and I'm not you. And this is not about you. Hello? When people are self-centered, they filter your experience through their ego. So instead of being like, oh my God, yeah, I'm totally here for you, I totally get it, they're not understanding at all. They're also unable to step outside of their narrative and consider anybody else's point of view. They can't put themselves in somebody else's shoes because all they can see is their shoes, is their own shoes. Only their experience matters. Now, someone who has a healthy level of empathy can say, hey, this person's feelings may be different from my feelings, but their feelings are not invalid. I can still feel with them because I know what this feeling is, even though it may not be my specific situation or perspective. Sign number 4, they don't remember things that bother you. People who fail to remember triggers or boundaries that you have, or difficulties that you've explained to them about 11 times, probably aren't suffering from bad memory. It's just that honoring these things about you isn't high on their priority list. When you have to tell someone over and over and over and over again to stop doing a thing or saying a thing, that's a clue. If they're taking you to go ride on roller coasters when you made it explicitly clear to them that you're afraid of roller coasters, that could be a sign. Someone who deeply cares about your feelings is going to remember important things about you or painful experiences that you've had, and they will do their best not to repeat certain patterns or behaviors that they know might harm you. Sign number 5, minimizing your feelings. When you express something painful, it can cause discomfort in others, like I mentioned earlier. But what's key here is how the other person handles the discomfort. People with healthy levels of empathy can sit in discomfort, and people who can't will shrink your experience. When people say things like, oh, it's not that big of a deal, or oh, it's not that bad, when that person, place, or thing literally change the trajectory of your entire life, it can feel so invalidating. It can feel like being hit with a ton of bricks. But this is really them protecting themselves because they don't want your feelings to penetrate this big old wall that they've spent their whole lives building. Huge emotional walls. People who prioritize managing their own discomfort at the expense of your feelings possibly have an empathy deficit that should not be ignored. Those are just a few signs that I've noticed in my personal life, in my human to human interactions. It's by all means not an exhaustive list, just a starter pack to get you going. But let's lock in for a second, okay? Let's lock in. I have to clean off my glasses one more time because we're gonna lock in. All right, class is in session because there are some things that we need to know. Things that even I wasn't entirely aware of until I started doing research for this particular video. Okay, till I started typing up on Google for this video because I'm learning just like you learning too. Empathy does exist on a spectrum. Okay, so when we talk about empathy, we have to expand our mind just a little bit. It's not just either you have empathy or you don't have any empathy. It don't work like that. For example, a friend can comfort you about your dead dog, okay? And she does that perfectly well. But if you have a more complex experience that she personally can't relate to, she may not be able to empathize as well. There are different types of empathy. There are apparently 3 main types of empathy. They are listed as, hold on, hold on, let's see. 3 types of empathy are listed as: number 1 is cognitive empathy, described as the ability to understand a person's thoughts, feelings, and perspective intellectually. It's about knowing what someone else is thinking without necessarily feeling their emotions yourself. Type number 2 is emotional or affective empathy. It's described as experiencing a similar emotion to what another person is feeling, as if their emotions are contagious. It's feeling their pain or joy along with them. Type 3 is compassionate empathy, and it's described as a combination of cognitive and emotional empathy with the added desire to help. It's not just feeling and understanding, but being moved to take action to support the other person. The more you know, right? So I said all this to say, people may be healthily attuned to one type of empathy and be deficient in another type of empathy. But what you need to be aware of is where exactly their empathy starts and where it ends. What does their spectrum actually look like? That is how you can better understand where someone can meet you and where they can't meet you. We also have to know where to adjust our expectations, when to take things personally and when not to, because it's not your job to fix or change anybody else. And empathy doesn't just vary between people, it varies within the same person, across contexts, relationships, and stress levels. Recognizing this kind of nuance will help you understand where people are emotionally, which will in turn protect you emotionally. So maybe if you want to be a top level empathy detector, maybe it will help you to have some kind of framework when you're meeting and connecting with new people. You have to put your glasses on and do your research. You have to collect the data first. As you collect the data, then you'll know how much to let someone in. You have to vet people, and this isn't just like a one-time thing. It's an ongoing process. This will help you assess what to expect instead of getting whiplash from everyone that you thought could meet you as deeply as you want to be met. Note when they have shown empathy. What kind of empathy was it? How did they respond when you shared something vulnerable? Get a solid understanding of how these people can look. And once you get a good idea of a person's empathy profile, right? Then you can place them where they belong in your life. If they can't meet you with deep feelings, don't talk about deep feelings with them. If they're the overanalyzing type, just go to them if you need to analyze something. Also, check your own empathy. Where do you fall on the spectrum? Where and when are you most empathetic? How do you respond? Do you overfunction or overrelate? That's where the self-awareness comes in. So you're not overcompensating for the empathy gaps in other people. Well, that's all I have for this video. Of course, let me know what you think in the comments. Did you ever have a friendship or a relationship with someone and later realize that their empathy was running on E? Please like, share, and subscribe if you have not already. I'm just a girl with a small channel. Please show me some love. As always, stay gorgeous, and I will see you in the next one.